Hey, everybody, it's Rob and Jim.
How's it going?
We got a familiar logo back here. Do you guys remember us?
It's been a while.
They're like, dude, it's been 3 years. We're back. We're back. Two Hungry Teachers are back. But Jim had an amazing idea for a different format. So as you know, in the past, we were checking out restaurants and we were ranking foods like Beer Rocks and what else? Frito Boats.
Frito Boats, yeah, that was a big one.
But Jim, tell them the new format.
So I was trying to think, how could we still give you guys the two Hungry Teachers that you had already subscribed to be part of, from the fact that we're both educators. And I think my story behind this is I've been in teaching now 11 years. We just finished today. And you finished how many years?
20.
20.
Today.
So I finished 11 years today, him 20, and I figured now I could probably say we have enough experience to talk about a different perspective as far as educating. And your little 2 cents was we don't have to eat. I always love to eat, but yeah,
we don't always have to eat because we're hungry for knowledge.
there you go. We're hungry for knowledge, but we want to be able to give new teachers out there the knowledge to be able to know how to handle your classrooms before it gets too crazy. You want to quit. Was there times you ever thought you needed to quit?
Yeah, that first year. They always tell you that first year is the hardest.
It was.
But you really don't, like, until you're in it, you go, oh, this is what they were talking about.
And I remember when I first got into education, I was in television for 27 years, so I knew this broadcast type stuff. So I knew this. There's no way I knew how to actually talk to kids to keep their attention, as an educator. And I remember calling you saying, is this a job I really want to do? My uncle, I had other family members that were telling me you would be great. And it kind of helped me along the way.
Wait, well, who first planted the seed that you were going to be a teacher?
So it's interesting you say that, because in my field in television, I had the opportunity. We had career day.
Yeah.
And our school, not our school, I got invited from my station at 47 to be a part of this huge career day. And I don't know if a lot of new teachers or any educators have this at their school. And it wasn't just the booth. It wasn't just the table setup that had flashcards of what we do. We actually had PG&E drilling a hole in the ground and putting up a telephone pole. You had the fire department there that was actually opening the water hose and showing the kids the nozzle and the pressure and all the stuff on the truck with the BA and all the medical stuff.
Yeah.
And my job was to take a live truck and set up a live feed and show the kids how to actually transmit a live signal to be on television.
Yeah.
And the feedback that I got from these kids from being educated and seeing a career that they could potentially go into, it sparked it. It sparked it thinking, I could really show kids, anybody, on how to go into a career the right way, type of thing.
Yeah.
So
No, that's cool. You just sparked an idea now. I think we should start with how we became teachers. And you just broke it down. Yeah. Okay, so the way I became a teacher is I was a psychology major. And I think of going into counseling.
Psychology?
Yeah, psychology. I have a BA in psychology, right? And so I graduated and was like, okay, what kind of job can I get into? By the way, here's a lesson, guys. Intern. Get those internships going while you're in college still, or you're going to be like me, graduating like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And so I had this BA in psychology, and I'm like, okay, what do I want to do with it? And so I started working at a group home. And at this group home, the Kingsview Center out in Reedley, California, you had adolescents ages 12 to 18 with chemical dependency or emotional issues. They live in these dorms, and as a counselor, you're with them 12 hours a day, 3 days a week, right? And you're just trying to help them navigate what they're doing. They're psychologists and everybody on board. And so I work with them day-to-day stuff, getting them to lunch, getting them to sleep, help running them through their chores. They have free time, etc. Well, they would, during Monday through Friday, they'd go off to this school. And I was like, we bus them into town. They're like, no, there's a school on our campus. So I'm like, really? So I had a full-on high school, 7th grade through 12th grade, right? So junior high and high school. And they would go to school during the school day for about 6 to 8 hours, then come back And I was like, that's kind of cool. You guys have a campus, school. And so after working there for about maybe a year and a half, one of the counselors came to me and said, hey, do you have your 4-year degree? I'm like, yeah, I have a BA in psychology. He's like, did you know that you could be a substitute teacher for us? I go, but I don't have a credential. He said, no, 4-year degree, pass the CBEST, you can be a sub. I was like, oh, I'd like to try that. So I started subbing on campus. My first substitute job was plant science. Do you know how much I know about plant science? Zero, right?
Yeah.
So here's my first day as a teacher, substitute teacher. Do you know what a sickle is?
Mm-hmm.
So for those who don't know a sickle, you know how they have that picture of death and he has a blade?
Grim Reaper.
Yeah,
right?
Grim Reaper. Mm-hmm. And he has that blade, right? Kind of curved blade. Well, my first day on the job is I had this group of kids from the group home, and they were out in this tall grass, and they had these blades, these curved blades with a handle, and they're chopping down grass. Now, I've just met them. I don't have a good relationship with them yet. I don't, I don't know these kids, but my job is to make sure that they don't, accidentally hurt themselves. And then just like, it was the longest 3 hours of my life. I'm like, please, nobody get hurt.
But that was part of their curriculum. They had it.
Yeah, because it's hands-on.
Yeah,
which is a great idea, except for a substitute teacher. And so the guy who I was subbing for, I think he was gone for a couple of months, and so I start going back. And then pretty soon they're like, "Hey, do you want to try something full time?" And then it just grew from there. So I accidentally got into teaching because I was working at a group home that
did you pick up the long-term sub part of that?
For that one, yeah, I believe I did 3 months.
Yeah.
Till the end of the school year. And then and when I moved to the Bay Area, I began subbing out there at various school districts.
Now, let me ask you this, and for those future teachers, and I'm actually going to push this episode to how many teachers you get every year that are new at your campus?
On average, on campus or the district? Because the district is 3 high schools together.
Okay, all right.
So I would say on average 15 to 20.
A year, every year.
Yeah.
And then turnovers close to the
same?
same?
Because there's various things that happen. Most of the time people relocate or retire, but there's also people who don't get asked back because you have a 2-year window before you become, I lost the word.
Tenured?
Tenured. No. Yeah. Well, I forgot that.
Which is so funny on that whole tenure thing because I'm 11 and I used to always think, I finally made it to tenure. I'm safe. And they're like, yeah, no, they could let you go anytime.
So that 2-year period, sometimes you don't get asked back after the first year.
Yeah.
And so, for various reasons, it's about average 15 to 20 a year.
So we get roughly about 5 to 10, depending
on your one campus?
On the one campus, usually about 2. It's
okay.
Yeah, give or take. But one of the things that I was really, when I first looked into becoming an educator, because again, I used to do stories working in the media about boycotts, not boycotts,
education-based
stories on class sizes, money, funding.
What's happening right now?
Oh yeah. So I used to always think, man, here we go, going to another protest, a walkout or whatever it is, because they want their classes smaller than even 30, and they want more money and they want time and whatever it is. Now I know why. Now being in it on the other side, I get it 100%. So for those new teachers, I was one that like you said in earlier tonight, we were talking about getting yourself prepared for that job, and you really don't know what you're anticipating until those kids walk in. I watched numerous TED Talks. I watched so many different movies. In
preparation for your first day?
Trying to, because other than your education, which your background is you're teaching English and so on, I'm broadcasting. I'm an elective. So I don't really have anyone to say, oh, well, first you need to go in and show them how to use the cameras and do all this stuff. It's just kind of, you would think. And TED Talk didn't do it for me. I couldn't find anything. Now, the stories were phenomenal, but I couldn't find anything that said, oh, thank God, I feel good about tomorrow's first day at work. Nope.
I think that you might have been looking for something that doesn't exist, which is the thing that will totally prepare you for day one. The only way to do it is experience day one, right? That's where I
It's
think
just
that's
do
a lot of occupations is just kind of jumping in. Obviously, there's the training and there's some basic guidelines, but nothing's going to replace the hands-on experience that you will acquire.
It made me sick to my stomach knowing, and it was a personal thing, nothing to do with the school. I started at Sierra High School up there up in the mountains, up in
The Badger, is that the
Yep,
Badgers?
yeah, and Chieftains.
Chieftain,
So
ooh,
Badgers,
man.
Badgers is
I can get in
Yosemite.
trouble for that.
So they came in, and my first day experience was like, okay, here we go. They're coming in. The teachers, the admin, everyone made everything seem great, and was preparing themselves. They prepared me as much as they could. But when those kids kept coming in, I'm like, okay, stop. There's no, oh shoot, another kid came around the corner, and I'm like, stop coming in here. I'm looking at, I'm like, I have 22, and I started counting. And I'm like, okay, I just got to put on my big pants and just sit down. And I don't know, you did this too, and you've said this.
Yeah.
Don't talk about your class. First day, I did not talk about what I was going to teach them. I talked about myself and my experience. And
Well, I said this literally 3 hours ago on another podcast with Lemoore College. I think it's called the Golden Hour with President James Preston. But he asked, what are your words of wisdom for an up-and-coming or new teacher?
Oh, so you've had this conversation.
I'm telling you, 3 hours ago.
Okay.
And my words of wisdom were, they don't care what you know until they know that you care. So don't get too fixated on mastering your curriculum at the expense of not building that relationship first. Because it won't matter what you know. You could have the best information, the beautiful slides and the Canva presentations, but if they don't feel like you're invested in them, they're like, yeah, so.
And I know every teacher has a story, and I know this for a fact because I used to do stories about people, and we just sit here. And if you don't know, we have a podcast called Rob Live, so tune in and watch that. But we just did an episode on who we are and to know who each other is. Robert in his background in movies and so on, and my background in television and so on. But the kids don't need to really learn and have homework that first day. I don't know. I just
no, not at all. We have I don't know if you guys do this. I'm always like in awe at how far ahead in the game our district is sometimes with the stuff they do. And so one of the things that we have is no backpack day. Right?
Bring anything but a backpack?
Don't bring your Chromebook or your backpack because we're not working today.
Oh, I see.
We're team building. And so we spend that first day getting kids to connect and with various activities. One of my favorites, you ready for this? 3 truths and 1 lie. You ever done that one?
Yeah.
And it gets conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so I always get them because my truths all sound like big lies, right? Number 1, I put I put 4 on the board when they walk in.
Do you change it up every year?
Well,
If they've had you?
yeah, if they've had me, but usually it works like this. So, number 1, I was in a movie. Number 2, I was in a boy band. Right. Number 3, I have 2 dogs. Right? Or no, I say I have 3 dogs. Number 4, what was it? I can't remember what the 4th one is, but it's equally unbelievable. Oh, I was prom king. Right? Those are pretty unbelievable. An older guy. You can't picture me in any of those things, right? Younger kids.
Yeah.
Because they don't know our past. And so everybody's like, oh, yeah, no.
You were not in a movie.
You were not in the movie. You're definitely not prom king, right? Or whatever it is. And it's all funny because I get it. I'm an older guy.
Yeah.
Right? I think the same about my teachers. And so when you start to circle that the lie was the dog thing.
The dog, the simplest one.
Are you trying to tell me that these 3 outrageous statements are right?
Yeah.
And now they're learning about you, and now they're asking questions, and then now they play it amongst each other.
See, I'm going to use that. Yeah. I played that game before, not with my kids, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that is the type of thing that I think is a day 1 activity because now we're getting to know each other, and we're trying to make the room. my goal is always, can I make this room feel like a safe, fun place to be? And of course, what makes it unsafe is on day one. All right, get out your Chromebooks, guys. Our first activity, or I've got assignments already, and now the anxiety of the assignment and homework, and there's a lot of associations with the classroom that aren't always positive.
I don't remember the movie I watched. If it was a movie, it was something. But so 9 times out of 10, I mean, we both have kids. You ask them, "Hey, sweetie, how was your first day at school?" And I would say probably 100 to 90% is what?
Fine.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was all right. And I heard this person, maybe it might have been TED Talk. I don't even remember it, but it stuck in my head. You want to get those kids to be able to come home saying, "Dad, do you believe that our science teacher blew up a toy truck or something?
Yeah.
Can you believe that our PE coach climbed up the rope in less than 10 seconds to prove that he could do it?"
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's something that made them go home and say, "WTF?" Like, can you believe
My teacher
Yeah.
was a professional cameraman.
Yeah.
Like, Dad, he worked
Yeah.
for NBC.
Or was in a movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, City Slickers.
Yeah, just shake. You want to just shake on day one.
Yeah.
But no, and they're excited, right? And they're like, and so in our classroom, I don't know if you've tried this one, but I don't remember where I learned this, but we have the class rules, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
keep your phone. But we also have the family rules. The family rules are optional. You can choose to follow them, right? And so the way you kind of encourage that is you say, okay, you don't have to follow the family rules, but if your goal is like mine to make this feel like a safe environment, then this is what you need to do, right? So you kind of give them a choice to follow it, but they're kind of rules like have each other's back, don't judge, right? Check on each other, right? Just
the basics.
Yeah, like like these more empathetic approach, right, to make the room feel safe. And so I spend like the first month. I mean, that's kind of overboard, but like almost the first month is like 70 to 80% team building and 20% work. It got so bad this year that like after like the first month, I had one parent reach out to me like, "Hey, are we gonna crack open that textbook?"
Right.
And I was like, "Trust the process."
Yeah.
Right. We're gonna get to it, but why I can't get to it right now if they're not bought in yet.
I think another thing too that helped me, and I know we're going to elaborate into this, but my first day of school at Sierra High School, when the bell rang, it was maybe less than 10 minutes later. I'm looking around and I'm checking everything. I'm thinking, I literally I did it, right on. And it was not bad. It was just the beginning, starting to get the rhythm. Because then you have 7 periods to do that with, right?
Yeah.
And after that first period, you start getting in a routine.
A rhythm, yeah.
But I will always credit Karen Lowe, who was a teacher at the high school, came in and she literally came up to me and said, "Can we sit down and talk?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's not admin. She's just another coworker. And she says, how'd you do? She kind of like held,
checked in. Oh.
And just a normal, what we're going to talk about.
You ready to?
Yep, I'm bringing it in.
Jim's bringing it in. Okay, so.
But she literally became my
Marigold.
And she literally I didn't ask her to do this. She came up to me and she goes, "Get a pen and paper. And I want you to start off with this. I want you to do this." And she was better. And no offense to the admin at the time, she really laid it down to me to where I'm like, okay. And I still to this day, 11 years, have that paper. And I go and I check on. Now I've added my own stuff to it because now I feel confident.
So is this kind of the blueprint?
It was a skeleton blueprint of what I need to do. And so to this day, I credit Karen Lowe, shout out, because she's no longer there anymore.
Lowe.
But she literally sat down face to face and had a book. She gave me a couple books that I read part of them. I didn't really read all of them, but in general,
just took you under her wing.
Yeah, 100%. And so then it was like, "Hey, come on over. We're having lunch. We're doing this over here."
What? That's a marigold for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so for some of you who are like, "Wait, what's he talking about here?" We're talking about the famous "Find Your Marigold" article, right? And this is from Jennifer Gonzalez, right? She wrote this amazing article from her.
Where's she
Well, it's a
from?
podcast now, and it's a
Where's she
newsletter. I'm not sure exactly where she's from, but her podcast and newsletter is called Cult of Pedagogy, right? And so I always read her stuff. I get her newsletter. Guys, I'm going to put a link to Jennifer's stuff on here, but this really essential guide that she put out for new teachers, she said, the one essential rule for all new teachers is to find your marigold. And I was like, okay, what are we talking about here? So maybe, well, we can't zoom in. Nobody's out there, but
Send it to me. I'll post it.
yeah, we said.
Yeah.
So anyway, the marigold is a beautiful, kind of orange yellow flower that's out there, and I've seen it, many places.
Karen had blonde hair.
There, it was reddish orange.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what Jennifer Gonzalez was talking about here is a marigold in teaching is someone who comes around and like takes you under their wing and nurtures you and helps you to grow as a new teacher. And so she got this label from a gardening technique, which is, I think it's called pairing. And what you do is, let's say I'm growing tomatoes. I'm going to grow marigolds near the tomatoes because marigolds are a great partner plant. They enrich the soil, right? They provide nutrients, and anything that grows near them typically thrives. So you get bigger, fresher, healthier tomatoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a walnut tree.
A walnut tree.
Yes, and apparently the way it works with walnut trees is they kind of suck up all the water from the surrounding soil, right? And kind of like make the soil, I don't know if it's poison or acidic, so plants kind of die around it, right? So it's the opposite of a marigold.
Who wouldn't have known that walnuts are, because they're around the Central Valley, all over the place.
Yeah. So this is just,
But I guess you wouldn't see too many vegetables growing around.
no, apparently not. But she used this as, kind of a metaphor for what we have in teaching, and that is teachers who take in new teachers and they'll allow them to grow like Mrs. Lowe. And on the other end of that, there are teachers who, for whatever reason, might be in a negative space and kind of influence a new teacher in maybe a direction that's not ideal.
Yeah.
And so what Jennifer advises, when you're a new teacher on a new campus, find your marigolds. Find those teachers who are going to nurture you, build you, feed you, allow you to grow, take you under their wing, right? It makes the experience much more like positive and wanting to stick around for that next year, as opposed to walnut trees. And so she gives categories of walnut trees, like who are these teachers that you kind of want to avoid.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through the list.
Okay.
And then you tell me like, oh, I've heard that, I've seen that, etc. Okay, so it says beware the walnut trees, right? And so here are some examples of walnut trees. They're poison. Avoid them whenever you can. If you don't, they'll start to infect you, and soon you'll hate teaching as much as they do. So here is the walnut tree categories. First, there's kid hating Kate, right? Spends every minute, every time you have a positive anecdote about something a kid's doing in class that's positive, she'll kind of snort and be like, Shh, really? Right? And then kind of remind you that every single one of those kids is a lying, cheating little sneak, and you're a fool if you think otherwise, right? So she kind of pulls you back in. Retirement Dan regularly reports on how many years he has left before he's out of here, right? So this is a person who's like really excited about
Leaving,
getting out, which is kind of the opposite of what you want to feel as a new teacher.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, you're in a real hurry to get out.
And today's my first day.
Yeah, and why should I stay again? Right? You have 20-page Tina, who sets impossibly high standards for her students and brags when kids fail. Right? Nobody ever gets an A in my class. Right? Because my class, right? And the students say her exams are the only ones they ever have to study for. And after talking to Tina, you'll feel the urge to triple your kids' workload and add at least 10 trick questions to your assessment just to get your average down. Right? So she's kind of encouraging you to, like, humble them, put them in their place.
Yeah.
Badass Bobby, who overhears you talking about your students acting up in class and says, they would never try that crap in my room, right? It just kind of makes you feel like, wow, am I out of control? I mean, do I have...
Maybe I should tighten the buckle a bit.
Yeah.
Get a little meaner.
And snap, crack the whip. And whenever you leave a conversation with badass Bobby, you go and scream at your kids. It's like, oh, I've got to step it up, right? And I felt that as a parent sometimes, you let your kids do what, right? Oh, sorry, right?
Or you turn that around saying, I would never let my kids do that, so therefore you're not doing that in my class.
Oh, I've never tried it that way. So then the next one is Hattie, who hates the principal. That's kind of self-explanatory.
Hattie, the hater.
Yeah, Hattie, the hater. Right? Oh, I can't stand our admin, and I can't, right?
Yeah.
And as a new teacher, you're like, well, I'm going to be working under the...
And your admin is your admin. You need their support.
Yeah.
So
they're crucial. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give a quick shout out, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
My principal, Jamie Rogers, I went to her the other day because I heard about this really cool thing that another teacher had done when her daughter graduated. And I had a son who was graduating. And this is like hours before graduation.
Congratulations. I didn't
Oh,
tell
thank
you.
you.
When
Thank you.
That. Yeah.
So my son's graduating, and they announce all the names. Well, as a tradition at our school, the teachers come out in robes as well, and they're on the field with the graduates, if you choose to. And so I said to her, hey, it'd be really cool if when my son walks up to get his diploma, that I get to go on the mic and announce his name.
Were you close enough to the mic?
Well, we set it up that way.
Okay.
And so our regular person, Chris Mesa, he was reading all the names. And then when my son's name came up, I popped out of nowhere because I didn't want him to see me. And all of a sudden, I'm in front of the mic in front of him. He's like, oh, Dad, did you want to read my name? I go, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Right? Jaden Kai Scared.
So they hand you a paper of their name?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
They each hand their index card, right?
Nice.
It's a system.
Yeah.
So I got to read his name, and it was a real special moment. Our ASB director, shout out to Sarah Valines, she recorded it, and I put it on Facebook. I have it on YouTube.
Nice.
That moment forever.
Yeah.
My admin, my principal, Jamie Rogers, she made that moment happen. She saw the value in what was happening. She, I guess, valued me.
Yeah.
And that's special. Now, this Hattie hating the principal person probably doesn't get a whole lot of grace.
No.
Because the thing that we don't understand a lot of times is that we're dealing with humans. And humans by nature are emotional. And yes, in the perfect world, our admin should treat everybody the same, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, if I feel like we have mutual respect and you are trying to be as compliant as possible with the policies and procedures we run the school with, I tend to be a little bit more, I can't think of the word for it, but I'm going to work with you.
Now, did she hire you?
No. The person who hired me was Michelle Borges, and she went on to another high school. But we have a really good relationship, and I really feel like she has my back.
Yeah.
That makes me want to work harder and stay.
Yeah.
And so moments like this, right, where Hattie, who hates the principal, is complaining about admin, that makes our new teachers not want to buy into what we're doing. And it affects our culture. The next one is Lawsuit Steve, who sees you touch a student's forearm and says, you better watch out.
Yeah.
He had to give up hugs years ago and is always reminding you to be careful.
That there is some kind of fine line in today's world to that. What's his name?
Well,
again?
yeah,
Lawsuit Dave.
The other thing is there's a lot of truth to many of these, but if we are carrying ourselves with that lens, it's not very welcoming, right? You're gonna get sued, Jim.
I did have one teacher back at Sierra who opened the door my first year, same year, that there were certain kids that, as a man, I needed to make sure that someone was visible or had an ear to be able to, if there was a conversation with someone and this individual student was known for not telling the truth about male teachers, and I had no clue. And so she heard me, and her door was next to mine. Her classroom was adjacent to mine, so I could just go right into her classroom from my classroom. And she purposely opened up the door, propped it. Hey, how you doing? I'm in here if you need anything.
Had your back.
Yep, 100%. There was another one. Sierra was really a first school that just opened my love to education. And it's continued now that I'm over at Liberty too as well.
Well,
So-
the thing that impressed me about you, especially as a young teacher, is you weren't afraid to go out and try things. When you were ASB director,
Yeah.
you were like, dude, we're going all out. We're going to make this an event, right? And when you make it an event, you create the memories.
Well, and I don't know how many more you got there, but if you are sluggish and slow and a deadbeat Dan or whatever,
Deadbeat
I don't know.
Dan. You made a new one.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it. But
Deadbeat Dan.
You have to find your niche, right? You got to find that you're the teacher, because I know I've seen your posts. You got to dress up when it's dress up days. If the kids see you as bleh, then they're not gonna care about you.
Yeah, if you're not participating.
And my wife would always tell me when I first started, like, you're living high school all over again, aren't you? And I go, yeah, I am. I just have the key.
Yeah.
I
just have the
control.
keys.
Yeah.
You're right.
So-
You know one thing that then this is just personal to me, that if when I was working at that high school, my mindset was, I'm going to make sure that my kids come here. You know why?
Yeah.
Because if I know my own kids are going to be here,
Yeah.
right? I want to make that school the best place possible for them.
Yeah.
Because all my other students deserve what they're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm not criticizing anyone who works at one school and send their kids elsewhere. There's many reasons for why that happens, right? Maybe you live in another town and your kids want to go to school with their friends. But whenever possible, right, I think it's important that we send our kids to the place that we're working at, because it's a statement.
Yeah.
It says, hey, this school is good enough for you. It's good enough for my own kid.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And to your credit, both of your daughters, one
Yeah.
graduated and one is at Liberty.
Yeah. Now, to give them credit, they're totally opposite kids. I had one kid that was my ASB vice president, was big involved in E15 and did huge things at my school,
Yeah.
following me as an activities director. But now that I'm no longer the activities director, she could raise her hand up high, knowing that she was a part of my last few years as an activities director. My second daughter has nothing to do with my program.
She has her own interests.
She has her own interests.
Tennis.
I'm the tennis coach. Yeah, sporting, Liberty tennis. But what's interesting is she told me two different things. Dad, I just don't want to. I don't have anything to do with your video production stuff, which is fine. But then she also said that consciously she knew, I don't want to be told that I'm going to get an easy A because you're my dad. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
good
we don't
thought,
think about that
right?
stuff, right?
Yeah. So she
Like
was
coaching
preparing
you.
herself from not being bullied on that. So yeah.
You're right. There is that. And then we got to do a whole episode on having your kid
Oh,
at the same school that you work at,
Yeah.
because that has its own tricky dynamic as well. So we're going to continue with our list of walnut trees.
All right.
We just finished with Lawsuit Steve. The next one is My Time Margaret.
My time.
She counts the number of minutes she got for lunch, complains about serving one more day of car rider duty than anyone else, and knows precisely what time she's legally required to be in the building each day, and not a minute earlier.
Can you imagine all of these names of teachers at the same school?
Hey, no, I believe there are schools that have all of these
I
characters.
believe it. Yeah.
So My Time Margaret, and there's two sides to that, right? Because I can see where someone might have a chip on their shoulder about feeling like they're being taken advantage of,
Yeah.
with the assumption that you're going to do above and beyond without compensation, right?
So-
because hey, your daughter's on the tennis team and you're the tennis coach, so we're going to give you a stipend, but we're going to need about 3 to 5 extra unpaid fundraiser events, and I need you to do them, right?
Yeah.
And so I can see where My Time Margaret might develop that chip on her shoulder.
Yeah. And there's other stories that we could go into with that, but it's I lost my train of thought, but it's the expectations. Oh, you don't always have to be a yes man your first year. I know it sounds.
Yeah, no, I think the academic advisors say that.
Yeah, don't say yes to everything. And a mentor told me one time, never say no, say I'll try. if it works out and I could try to do it, then I'll help out. But if not, don't ever say no, because then you start becoming the negative Nelly, and you want to make sure. But just kind of say, it's my first year. I really like to kind of get my bearings greased and so on.
Yeah, I've talked to my friend Eric Aldana. He was with Samsung for 20 plus years, right? An executive there. Learned a lot about leadership, and so I always talk to him about it. And he said one of the things that you see it in the corporate world, as well as teaching, is that you can have a campus of, let's say, 40 to 50 teachers. It's the same 6 or 7 that are volunteering to do all the stuff.
Always.
They're the club advisors. They're the class advisors. They show up to the senior dinner. You know what I mean? And so we wear them down because we're not balanced in terms of who's doing what. And again, you can't always control all of that.
No, and there, when you start it, I don't know how many gate duties you guys have to sign up for.
I think it's 3.
So at most schools usually have a list where you have to volunteer and sign up certain duties, whether it's taking money at the basketball game or helping out in the morning, greeting kids off the bus. You have to have certain amount of duties. Me as an activities director, I didn't have to do that because I had already a plethora of things I was in charge.
You're the busiest person on campus.
Big time. And so when I lost I didn't lose it. We passed on the baton, and I was done doing activities for a while. I had earned a lot of credit, so they don't even ask me to do anything. It's been nice.
they know. They saw you put in the work. You're a hard worker. Ready for the last one?
Yeah.
The last walnut tree from Jennifer Gonzalez is called Good Old Days Judy, who hates anything new and never fails to mention how much better things used to be. Right?
So, yeah.
Back in my day.
I know. And we were just talking about that this week.
I think technology is a big thing with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that change, and we don't have any control over it. How many times in your 20 years has it been the same lateral year back to back?
Right, what do you mean?
Well, we were talking about this to where admin changes, so there's new curriculum, there's new things that they add to the table.
Oh, okay, the leadership.
Yeah, everything that goes on, you're thinking, man, I feel like this year, and I'm speaking this year, was busy. Like we had a new principal who's been in our district for 20 plus years, but she has the role of now a principal instead of a VP.
Well, shout out. What's her name?
Yeah,
again?
Candace Osborne. Yeah, great person.
I met her briefly.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Candace Osborne.
Candace Osborne. Candace, behind every hawk is a great teacher. Okay, remember
She's
that.
gonna kick my butt. Yeah. So, and she did very well for our first graduation, her as a principal. So, but going back to
How'd the speech go?
it was different.
Oh,
Yeah, and very well done, organized. So, the things that are added every year, it's like, we WASC. Like you're going to learn all these different, what are they? Acronyms of different programs, and standards change. Certain things change, and don't stress about them in the beginning at all. And to be honest, kind of use the leverage of being a newbie, because you get 3 years where they say you're not a newbie anymore.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of grace there in the beginning.
I did that for a while, but they have your back, and you don't need to know all of that stuff. There's so many people on that roster that help you with that. So, but yeah, we had a lot of change this year that was stressful, but we got through it. So
You're right. What she says here about that change and about marigolds and walnut trees, is that not everybody's just one or the other. Right? You can be a marigold who kind of has some walnut tree.
depends on your day.
Right? Depends on your day. And I guess the way you measure this is, who are you most consistently? In other words, if you're a walnut tree once a month because you have a bad day, but you are consistently a marigold, then you're a marigold.
Yeah.
And so she advises here, get what you can where you can, which means your search for marigolds will yield imperfect results. Not everyone's all marigold, or not everyone's all walnut tree. So you have to just be conscious of who you're spending time around, because it does kind of affect or skew your view, your lens of the reality of the situation.
It does say a lot on who you, as long as you're aware.
Yeah.
If you start hanging out with the old veteran who's only has a year left of work and hates kids, doesn't even know why he's been teaching for 30 years, yeah, it's gonna rub off on you.
Or if you're aware of it, it's kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I know I'm next to so and so, Mr. Smith today, and he's going to give me an earful about how bad this place is.
But if you asked him,
Yeah,
for some pointers, I bet you would give you some good advice.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because
whether it's negative or not, it would be like, well, just make sure you know where all your kids are at all times. Don't be like me and get some of them, whatever. It's just, I'm speaking for him, not me. But
yeah, but you're right, because you kind of you're giving them sort of that respect that they have something to offer.
Yeah,
and it kind of changes their demeanor.
Yeah. So I really hope that by doing this podcast, we could share stories. I mean, because it's 31 years of experience between the two of us that I wish I had. I wish I was given. Now, the information I got from you and so on was great, but until you're actually in that classroom and you're in your zone, you know, and there's other zones that I'm talking about. You could be, in other stories too. I just the other day with chaos with the end of the school year. You're in a zone teaching your last lesson as a final, and you're in this moment, and then the phone won't stop ringing in your classroom because they're trying to get Billy and trying to get Susan and they're trying to get, and you're like, and your momentum goes up and down, and you got to know how to balance that and know, like, okay, where was I at? And if the kids, you start seeing you're losing the kids, and now you're mad and you're like, why do they keep calling? And I mean, literally, I went over then to the phone off the hook. It was 4 times in one period that I was like, they could come and get the kid if they need him that bad. I was in a zone, and I'm like, but you start, no one's going to get mad at you that your phone's off the hook. You got to finish what you got to do, what your day's there for. And I realized I have control of my classroom. It's I don't have to stop and answer a phone. Sometimes they're like, Mr. Chance, you going to get the phone? I go, no, I'm in a zone. I'll let it ring. They'll call back later, and so on. But, yeah. So I'm just kind of, you'll figure out the things that you need and what works for you as you progress and keep going.
Yeah.
And then you just know how to dodge, and you're like this football player with the ball, and everyone's out to tackle you, and you realize I need to get with my teammates to the other side, and those are your marigolds, and keep yourself surrounded by those people, because I had several my first few weeks of school.
So you just compared marigolds to linemen.
Yeah, they're tough. They're tough, but they're good. You need them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so
you need a good line. So so that is our first shared lesson for any new teachers out there. Find the article. We'll put a link to it. And essential rule number 1, identify and find the marigolds on your campus. And be aware of your walnut trees, and, take it with a grain of salt. Do not let it influence you. Teaching is one of the greatest careers on this planet, in my opinion.
I love the light bulbs. I love when the light bulb goes off on that kid, and you're like, wow, they actually learned something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't get to those moments if you don't stick around long enough to find them. So please find your marigolds. This is Rob and
Jim.
And we are two hungry teachers. We'll see you guys next time.